Well, thank you for staying with us. Time now for the news review, and I have one of my culprits here with me. He's my partner in mischief. In fact, I dare say this person is more mischievous than I am. But you will soon find out who this person is. He's staring at me from my left, but he has nothing to say for now because the camera is on me. Anyway, thank you for joining us. This segment is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering you free prostate screening, female fertility screening. Just make tracks to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And now you can find them here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. They are also in Kumasi, Kronum, Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. Then there is Takrade, Anaji Estate. There is Techiman, Hanswa, Esiama, and Nzema. And of course, again, here in the Greater Accra region, they can be found in Tema Community 22. If you'd like to call them, these are the numbers to call. 0244 867 068, 0244 867 068. You could also call 0274 234 321, 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But only the start of the news review right here on the AM show. Now, my partner in mischief, you can call him Jack, not John Ejekumkufo, no, definitely. Joseph Akable, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben.
I actually never realized, sometimes I'm so spontaneous, things come. I actually never realized your initials were the same as the former president's. John Ejekumkufo, Joseph Akable. Okay, so it's actually a B. Okay. Yeah. So my mind was just playing games with me. Do you have a K name?
Yeah, Kofi.
Kofi. It still works.
Kofi to the end. Yeah.
Joseph Akakofi.
That's strange.
That's
strange.
Anyway, so it's been quite a week we've had so far. I saw you scribbling quite a lot right before we got on air. What mischief have you been up to?
I don't know.
I was here academic.
Yes, it's academic. I was looking at a few issues bordering on citizenship in general.
I see. Okay. Maybe when you're done with with your ruminations, you can share with us what your thoughts are on citizenship in Ghana. But before we get into this, I always do this on a Friday. What has been, your major story over the last week? One or two that you feel have been really important, have made the waves, or for you, sometimes they may not have been so popular, but it's a standout story for you. What would that story or two be?
I think one will obviously be the IMF issues as to which other thing to add that I'm not too sure about. But I mean, I picked the IMF issues because of where we find ourselves currently. I mean, very tough times. I think I know what else to add. The fuel shortage that happened
on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And we spoke about it on Wednesday.
Yeah, so yeah, that is also another one for me. But on the IMF one, I mean, like I was saying, it's because of where we find ourselves in very tough times and having to hear the finance minister yesterday make a pitch to investors and more or less to try and get back the confidence in the Ghanaian economy. And yesterday I listened to the IMF chief, and listening to her was quite interesting in that she talked about how the IMF, and she believes that Ghana has generally been a country that has been managed properly, except the last few years that she says external shocks has led us to where.
That has been a rhetoric since I interviewed her, and since, but the interesting thing, she added something at that time that made me realize probably why Ghana may get the treatment it's getting. She said that, look, the stability of the sub-region, security-wise and otherwise, is hinged on Ghana, so to speak. And you realize that we've had a number of putches, military putches, and then coup d'etats and the rest. So if anything should happen to Ghana, you can tell what the ripple effect would be. We're like some stable force in the middle, holding everything together. And so some of these powers and institutions would have good cause to want us not to crumble, because if you crumble economically, then you're inviting terrorists, insurgents. And if insurgency comes in, then your democracy could be thrown out the window. And then, so if you look at it carefully,
in simple
there
terms,
are different interests, not necessarily the fact that we have done anything extraordinary.
So in simple terms, more or less like we are good boys in the sub-region.
Exactly.
Everyone expects to lend a helping hand to us to enable us to continue to be that good boy and that be that shining example.
Be that obedient boy.
Yeah,
when they say jump, you ask how high.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that is what I mean for me stood out for me as one of the stories, and we'll see how that goes. The new date we are hearing is latest by May, so we'll see how that goes. Then the fuel shortage. I mean, very unfortunate. Guel explains that is as a result of supply challenges. We saw some who had tried to suggest or make a connection with the situation to the gold for oil policy, among other things, but we have been told that that was going to be resolved within the next 48 hours. So by now, we expect that the fuel should be available. I mean, I don't know what your picks were.
Oh, I mean, these are some of the major ones that have come to the fore. The Brian Champon one is, of course, now it's been quite a number of days. But what I would take from there is the flip-flop, the seesaw between the NDC and the MPP. And, if this one's, you say that this person should be arrested, okay, then let's go back and retrospectively, you get it. How about these other people? How about the former president, John Mahama? How about Esiedun Ketia and others? I mean, if we wanted to do that, we would go as far back as the inception of the Fourth Republic. What I think, though, is that whatever the case may be, these two parties should cease, move away from talk, rhetoric that could trigger a spark. Because we've seen, like in many countries, in Kenya, a beacon of democracy in East Africa, who thought would have seen the scenes that happened there over some 14 plus years ago, where there was chaos there? Who thought? In Rwanda, who thought? So that little spark, if you can avoid it, because without that spark, there'll be no fire. I have always said that the two of them should just avoid the rhetoric. You remember when we had the anti-vigilante group thing? You get it? Yeah. I don't know how we can get our political parties to toe that line, to stay within a certain box, at least when it comes to this, that if you spew rhetoric like this, you'll be held liable, regardless of whether you're in power or you are not, this and that. Because look, the truth is, because of our executive system, where the president is appointing the IGP and all of these security operatives, it becomes very difficult sometimes for some of them to put their foot down and say, you are within the ruling administration, whether NDC or MPP, but this kind of rhetoric is inimical to the fortunes of the state. We are arresting you for this. Maybe sometimes not to incarcerate the person forever or process the person for court, but for shady reasons. You understand? Yeah, I understand. But you will never see that on a certain front because of the politics. And
to buttress your earlier point, I mean, I think the political parties have a key role to play in all of this. I mean, they are elders within both parties. There should be someone who should be able to say that, look, Ben, what you said, I don't think it was in
poor taste.
You should say such things. I mean, what they don't seem to understand is the fact that they control a following. And so when you say to people that 2024 is going to be boot for boot or do or die, or that 2024 will not hand over power to MPP or hand over power to NDC, this is the reason why when you go to the polling station and that MPP member, the results are declared and doesn't go the way that he thinks it should go, he decides that he's not going to allow the peace that is being enjoyed at that station to be. He wants to take the ballot box, wants to push someone away, and it results in...
Based on what you have said.
Exactly.
Because these people, like it or not, some of these people hold on to your every word. Yeah. They take it as the truth, the gospel.
Yeah.
That's what these people don't realize.
And if you remember, even post the 2020 polls, if you recall, there was a number of days when some supporters of the NDC, they pitched camp some few meters away from the Electoral Commission office. They were there for a while. I remember the NDC MPs also marched towards that place. They were there for a while. It took a number of days till the leader of the party and other key party functionaries had indicated that they should move away before they eventually went. I mean, that is the power and control that such individuals wield. And we expect politicians to bring that to bear in their communication. I mean, it's a contest of ideas. Unfortunately, in our situation, they take us for granted in that both political parties will go into the 2024 elections with at least 40% of the votes on their side. And so they don't really care about the bulk of us, because the bulk of us are really either with them or against them, 40-40. So they are looking at just a few people who would now, what we call the swing voters, who decide which line it goes.
And if you consider that, according to that report by Cordeo on the EC, which is another troubling point, that the image or trust in the EC has plummeted from 48% in 2004 to 10% in 2022.
Yeah.
Then you see that really we are on the precipice. We shouldn't be playing with. You see, I always say, Akamle, that I have lived through war. I've survived 2 of them. One as a tiny tot. The other one I saw what was happening in Liberia. if you've seen some of these things, you realize that it takes very little.
Yeah.
It takes some reckless comments. It takes some foul actions. It takes some ethnic group feeling disadvantaged, spited, disregarded. Some little things become monstrous problems. And it takes, look at Liberia, look at how long it's taken them. And still, it's never fully recovered.
And you see the line of conversation we've been having post-2020. So 2020, there was an election petition, it went to court. After that, the judiciary was basically attacked so much so that some persons feel that 2024, if they disagree with the results, they are not going to go to the judiciary. I mean, that in itself sets the stage for what we could have a sense of what could potentially happen, because it will mean that what will be the other option? What will be the other option? If you don't want to go to the court anymore, what will be the other option? Are you going to just merely be vigilant at the polling station? If you're at the polling station, they declare the results against you, what are you going to do? It's still the legal process that you ought to use. So, I mean, we just have to be mindful and urge our political leaders and political party members. See, trust me, those who are going to pour on the streets, mostly will not see the politicians, their children there. I mean, it's you and I, the normal people, who we are the ones who tend to go. The ones that when you have a problem, I mean, you are not going to, I mean, be able to even take off yourself or take yourself out of that situation.
And that is reflected in a comment I just see in the live feed. Aaron Babako Kokomisa says, most Ghanaians are tired of these political party and their politics. Today it's about political party A, and the next moment or hour it's about political party B. But still, our economic condition gets worse and is worsening, and nothing to write home about. My point is that let's all rally around economic policies that can change our livelihoods. That is 1D, 1F, or something else, and put the political gymnastics behind us for a better tomorrow. Well, anyway, we pray for that. Yeah. We pray for that. We pray our political parties will grow up and live up to expectation. But this morning, Akable, I have the Daily Graphic, Ghanaian Times, the Finder, and the Daily Statesman. We'll see how many time will allow us to get into. Which papers do you have?
I have just the Daily Guide for now.
The Daily Guide for now. Okay, you add the Daily Statesman.
Yeah.
Aha, so we can, or in fact, you know what? Let's do a little switcheroo. Let me do the Statesman, you do the Ghanaian Times. Okay. I know there are stories in there that you would likely want to take. So let's start with the Ghanaian Times, if you don't mind.
Yes, the front page has this other story. We actually put that story out yesterday. Health alert, new deadly mosquito found transmits malaria parasites that pose greatest risk of severe illness and death. That's according to the Ghana Health Service.
And I hear there are two types of whatever contagions it is. And its plasmodium has a certain characteristic, and you can use insecticides and others against it, and it's very resistant. And I'm like, hey, in fact, this one, they're mosquito macho.
Yeah, in fact,
mosquito macho.
The story is on page 11 of the Times. It says the Anopheles stephensi can practically breed in almost all sources of water, which is not the traditional breeding sites of the common Anopheles species. It survives in extremely high temperatures during the dry season, when malaria transmission usually declines. So that is also very problematic, because they are saying that ordinarily during the dry season, malaria transmission declines, but this particular type is able to survive in those high temperatures.
Yeah.
So at the time that his colleagues know they are not surviving and they are dead, he is still around. It is known to be very invasive, spread fast, and adaptive to a myriad of climatic conditions, and shown to be resistant to multiple insecticide classes in many locations, posing control challenges in its control. And so far, we are told that they found some at Tuba and Dansuman here in Accra. And so, very worrying. But there's some good news.
And the rate of proliferation, that is also a worry. The way they can quickly procreate. Yeah. So,
but
that
there's
also creates
a bit of good news connected to that. We have approved the Oxford vaccine.
Yeah. That has been, in the news for some days now.
Yeah. I think I saw that in one of the papers.
I think we are the first in Africa to test that vaccine.
So that story is actually in the Daily Guide, page 6 of the Daily Guide. So
we can just tie it in.
They said the Ghana Food and Drugs Authority has granted full national license for the R21 Matrix M malaria vaccine developed by the University of Oxford. The clearance procured, manufactured through an adjuvant technology from Novavax. We are told that the license holder for the vaccine is the first in any country With the approval of the vaccine, children aged 5 to 36 months, the age group at highest risk of death from malaria, can receive the vaccine. And so the FDA CEO at a press briefing indicated that the evaluation and approval process considered the safety, immunogenicity, and efficacy data generated from 5 main clinical trials conducted in the United Kingdom, Kenya, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Tanzania. I know we're doing some trials, but we're not. It doesn't make reference to trials of this particular drug. But yes, it's been approved by the FDA, and so that is it on the malaria situation. But some other stories on the front page of the Ghanaian Times quickly. Ghana South Assembly Task Force members defy order. Ghana expects IMF loan approval by June, and trader jailed 6 years for human trafficking and aiding prostitution. The back page has the story about the rehabilitation of the Kumawu Raso Efidrasi Joabin Road begins.
Yes, but on that, let me see, the story concerning, yes, the IMF deal. You know, we've been told variously that it would be in May, and now we're being told in June. Look, yesterday I engaged Professor Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School, Lord Mensah, among others. This is a slope that we must go down very carefully, looking at some of those dynamics. And today I'll be sharing them with you in my blunt thoughts. The IMF and others may be giving their backing. We're hoping that China will play ball and come along with its 1.7 billion that we owe. But if you look at our figures and what we have to do, and how we even have to bring our debt to GDP ratio to about 55% by 2028, among others. It's a tall order. Mind you, other countries, even Zambia and the rest, some of the countries that have even got deals, some went through certain levels and they still hadn't got money, so to speak, because there are certain other processes that must be triggered before you actually get your first tranche. It's not even going to be like 3 billion coming into our accounts.
And even on the debt restructuring aspects, the external one, 30.5 billion, we've only done just $1 billion.
We've done about 1.6 billion out of 35 billion. 35.5 billion.
Yes, even though the minister indicated that there is some 8 billion that they don't intend to restructure.
Right.
So it means that some 20 billion is outstanding that
20 plus billion
that we have to deal with. And so the question remains that, is it a case that we are going to get some commitment that will enable us get the board approval so that we attempt to do that? Because we've been working at it for months and we've done just 1 billion. And so, I mean, I am leaning towards the possibility that maybe the minister is getting a sense that we are going to get a commitment that we can take to the IMF.
I mean, the Paris Club has met, the Chinese, we've had meetings with them. We're just hoping that, you know, because no creditor really wants you to default on your debt. They give you the money in hope of, they are like venture capitalists. When they also, you know, invest their capital, they want the right returns at the right time. You get it? So it's a bit of a...
And once you have challenges, they are obviously open to you giving them terms that are favorable to enable them
exactly
as well.
Exactly. They are not necessarily, here's the fact, they are not necessarily looking at your interest. They are considering their interest, but only trying to be magnanimous so that, because in the end, if they also push us to a certain brick wall, a cul-de-sac, if you like, it means that they may end up losing their money altogether,
I mean,
which is what nobody wants.
There will simply be a default, and they will have to now go through the process to attempt to enforce judgment, among other things.
But on the international front, the Ghanaian Times usually has some interesting stories, I think on page 5 or page 3 or so. We could check out what stories there are there before we move on to another paper.
Yeah, there's this story about Egypt accusing Ethiopia of buying time in their dispute over the Nile Dam, and Kenya MPs amend rule over prosecuting UK troops, and tension grows as Sudan's army blames rival force of mobilizing. So we are told that the Sudanese army has warned that the country's biggest paramilitary group is mobilizing troops in cities across the country. A statement issued in the early hours of Thursday, the military accused the rapid support forces of clearly breaking the law. There are growing fears of a confrontation between the two sides. The RSF leader, Mohamed Hamdan Dagolo, who played a key role when the army seized power in June 2021. So, you can see what others are talking about in other countries.
And this story particularly is interesting. Kenyan MPs amend rule over prosecuting UK troops. You remember there was an incident where apparently a Kenyan woman was killed and hidden in a cistern or a well or something of the sort, purportedly by UK troops. And so now, I don't know whether you could take a
yes,
bit of that story.
we can. So the Kenyan members of parliament have voted to amend a defense agreement with Britain after allegations that troops training there committed serious crimes. It means that UK soldiers could be tried for murder, amongst other grave offenses committed against Kenyans in Kenya. It comes after a lack of progress in getting justice for the 2012 murder of a young woman, Agnes Wanjiru, who went missing after she was seen walking out of a Kenyan bar with British soldiers. The 21-year-old's body was later found in a septic tank at a hotel nearly 3 months later. So no one has been brought to justice, and the UK Defense Ministry has insisted it has been cooperating with Kenyan authorities. And so that story is the context for the decision that when there are grave crimes committed against Kenyans in Kenya, so no longer going to apply the defense agreement that they had, they'll rather allow for the prosecution of those individuals.
And the catchphrase or wording there, grave crimes.
Yeah.
So it's not just anything.
No, so
but
murder
something like murder, exactly, comes with a certain weight, or even rape.
Yeah.
Let's get into the Daily Graphic newspaper now. IMF bailout, 3 billion lands in May, sources. And I like how sometimes 3 billion lands in May. Anyway, so Ghana is set to secure a final approval for its $3 billion bailout program from the International Monetary Fund next month. Two officials with deep insights into the talks have told the Daily Graphic. They explained that the positive development came after the country tapped into the goodwill of the IMF and key bilateral creditors to fast-track the debt restructuring process. They said financial assurance from bilateral creditors, which is the last hurdle for the country, was due later this month to pave the way for the request to be presented before the IMF Executive Board in Washington, D.C., United States, for consideration and approval next month. I would honestly wish, Joseph, that we would stop putting out deadlines and by this and by that. We've done it so many times, even with our own domestic debt exchange program, so many times, and we failed.
And the interesting
I don't know about, and it's even more complicated on the external front. People would say that the domestic front was more complicated because of, but on the external front, with what we are seeing, I think it is even more complicated. There's no hard and fast, set in stone guarantee. Do you get it? So I would have approached this with some caution. Look, we're hoping to get this, maybe you could say by the end of this quarter or something. If you get it earlier, it works. But this whole rhetoric about May, which is what I started hearing from yesterday, from very important sources, I don't know.
But yesterday, the IMF chief was asked the same question. And interestingly, she didn't give a timeline. In fact,
that's the whole point.
It was a Ghanaian journalist from Asasi who had asked that. She said the whole Ghanaian, a lot of Ghanaians, 32 million Ghanaians are looking forward to an IMF deal. When exactly is it coming? And in her response, she didn't give any timeline. She spoke about how she had personally intervened, and at every opportunity she urges Ghana's creditors to assist the country, and they should give, and that they are committed. And once all that process is cleared, the agreement.
Exactly the point. At a point, we even heard Mr. President say categorically that end of March we would have a deal.
Yeah.
Where's the deal?
Yeah. So I mean, clearly the individual who, I mean, is arguably better placed to know when exactly the board approval will come in, is being a bit hesitant to give clear timelines and rather wanting to focus on the discussions behind the scenes to get it done. We'll see if we'll be able to meet this deadline this time around, but I don't think we should be too bothering too much to be putting out deadlines.
Fishing closed season starts in July. Chiana Paga, home to famous Paga crocodile pond. Constituents appeal for roads and a bridge. And that story there on pages 16 and 17 of the Daily Graphic. Colleges of Education teachers excel in licensure exam. That's according to a study. On the international front, Tinubu to be sworn in despite court cases. And it's really interesting now in Nigeria. Nigerian Information Minister Lai Mohammed has said President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be sworn in on May 29 despite court cases challenging his victory. Groups dissatisfied by the outcome of the February 25 presidential election are agitating for an interim government as outgoing President Muhammadu Buhari officially leaves office in May. Mr. Mohammed said there was, quote, no basis for the constitution of an interim government. Interesting times in Nigeria, really. IMF yet to agree on date for $3 billion Egypt deal, and the Egypt and the International Monetary Fund have yet to agree on a date for the initial review under a $3 billion financial package signed in December, an IMF official said on Thursday. Now, you get exactly what I mean with Ghana hastening slowly. They had a deal signed in December. The disbursement has still not happened. So the way we are going about this hastily and talking about it and everything, it may take quite a while before even a dollar gets into Ghana's accounts. Look at Egypt. Signed in December. Still not yet. Because it's one thing crossing the staff level agreement. The other process is restructuring if need be, and the processes that must be triggered before you actually get IMF funding. And the processes are clear, crystal clear.
I mean, you are looking at $3 billion for in the situation of Ghana. I mean, if I'm going to give you a loan of $3 billion, especially someone who clearly, from the data they are providing to me, you are simply telling me that your economy is in tatters. I mean, I have to be very rock sure, because else I'll give you the money, you go and waste it, and you're going to come back again and get my money back. So I need to be very certain that I'm giving you the money and you're going to use it for what we have agreed is the path to ensuring economic stability, so that I can also equally get my money back. This is not a grant we are getting from the IMF. It's a facility they are giving.
I mean, they will not give it to you for 0%. There is a little bit of an interest rate. It's a better deal compared to if you went on the commercial market to actually get
which we can't even go on the market.
Which we can't even do anymore. Charlie, Mozambican authorities seized drugs in Okafor Didi. Yeah. You know, it reminds me of that Lord Kenya song. And so Okafor Didi. Mozambique authorities seized drugs in Banana Track. I just wanted to, wrap up on this one. Chena Paga, home to famous Paga Crocodile Pond, constitutes appeal for roads and bridge. You know what? I think if we focused as a country, that's why I always say that I think it's haphazard, our leadership. We focus on too many things at a go. If we had a proper plan with the NDPC, look, an entity or a government can come, NPP or NDC, and say, yes, we'll tackle the other things that we must tackle bit by bit, but our focus maybe is going to be education at a certain level. Don't even rush it. Maybe basic level. We'll do X, Y, Z when it comes to F-Cube and all of that. Then roads will ensure that in the next 2 years, for example, our road network from here to there will all be so that those things about dirt roads and all of that, pregnant women not being able to get to the hospital, all of those are dealt with. I feel sometimes we just spread it too thin. You cannot, we can pick and choose as a focus and still do the other things with a bit of, you get it, in there.
A poor man with a lot
because we are so sparse in our planning, we never get anything done. It's always, yaya kakra, oh, there's a judgment debt here. Oh, this project has been abandoned. And that actually costs more than if we focused and did something.
Yeah, poor man with a lot of problems. You have to construct roads, you have to build schools, you have to pay teachers, you have to do this. So he does a little of this, a little of that, a little of that, and in the end, he doesn't really do better off anything.
In the end, you do nothing.
Exactly.
In the end, you do nothing. And that also reflects in our tourism. Because we have so many of these sites that, look, if we got the right roads, the right connections, the right bridges to some of these places, I'm sure we would, what we are getting out of tourism now. I always say this, there's a place where Nkrumah, during his time, up north, he used to go and relax. Whenever things got really hot in the kitchen, he would go there and relax. It's somewhere, I don't know whether it's the Upper East or the Upper West, one of those places. His car he used, for example, there was this vehicle he used or gifted out. It's become a rust bucket. I mean, these are things that you can put in some museum. Go to the West. They'll quickly do that and commercialize it.
Yeah.
Here we are sitting on it.
In fact, in other jurisdictions, they will make it possible to take a ride in that car. They'll take some good money from you. I mean, we'll just let it rot. But I mean, here, the good news is that in the last couple of years, 2 years or so, I mean, we've seemed to get some tourism boost of sorts. And so we have a lot of people coming into Ghana. And I think it would be good to take advantage and make some of the key destinations where these individuals tend to visit, give it a facelift and make an attempt to make other areas also look good so that we can also divert it there. So if a place like Paga is also receiving people, just like how now we know that anyways, when anyone comes, they'll go to Cape Coast Castle. I mean, we know they'll go there anyways.
Yeah.
If they're going to a place like Paga, you can also know how it will boost the local economy there as well. And so we should also look to doing that as well.
Let's get into some other papers.
Yes, the front page of the Daily Guide now. The Daily Guide has this story about a woman who has killed a rival over a boyfriend.
Hey.
Yes, has a photograph of the two of them. So there's the killed person and there's the suspect, one Mary Akosua Ajiman, and the deceased is Videinin. Mahama runs from do or die comments. It's also on the front page.
He's been explaining recently, talking about it didn't mean butchering and all of that. Why open yourself up to anything?
Come and explain after. 8 MPP boys after Kumewu seat, and Ghana IMF bailout approval close. That's according to the IMF boss. That story on page 6 about the boyfriend issue. Very unfortunate development. We are told that a 25-year-old seamstress apprentice, Mary Akosua Ajiman, has been remanded in police custody for allegedly killing a fellow woman in a row over her boyfriend. Videinin, 28, was stabbed in the face, breast, and her palm by her rival at Edwinasi near Kokotro in the Bekwai municipality of the Ashanti region on Sunday evening during a brawl on who is rightfully suited to be the fiancé of the man, an excavator operator. Vida was stabbed numerous times and bled to death in the fight, which was thought to be settled with fists, according to facts made available to the Bekwai Circuit Court. And so the suspects confronted Vida and accused her of spreading rumors about her and the man, which sparked the altercation. In the process, Mary hurried to get a sharp knife and stabbed her adversary. She was later arrested by the Bekwai police together with 2 others. Felicia Sapon, 61, and Ernest Achim, 63, for attempting to hide Mary from arrest. Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot to digest. Charlie, getting stabbed in the face, your breast, your palm.
Yeah.
But when I hear of people, spewing acid on others or these kinds of gory attacks, people get hurt too. I know there are crimes of passion and all of that, but sometimes I guess some people, I don't know. And this is where anger management is also crucial. I know of 2 people recently in some church where there was a squabble over, guess what? A phone charger. And one was in the scuffle, one was pushed or something of the sort. He died. And now the other person is in custody.
Wow.
Just recently.
Over a charger.
Yes.
Goodness.
Workers. So a little misunderstanding. And sometimes, you know what the law says about some crimes where you can do something to someone and within a year and a day, if the person dies, you in Ghana, you'll be held culpable.
Yes.
Sometimes people don't know some of these things.
The year and a day rule. So if you slap someone, for instance, you push someone, the person falls down, and the person may be fine now, then 2 or 3 or 6 months or 8 months, 9 months later, the person dies.
And you'll be charged.
Yes, you'll be charged with murder. You don't escape liability. Once it's within a year and a day.
It is what it is. Well, we've come to the end of our news review. The Finder newspaper reflecting the same stories we've done. IMF board approval expected in June. Domestic debt exchange program to save Ghana. That is 38 billion Ghana cedis in 2023. IMF, China, World Bank tango over who takes debt restructuring losses. And NPA to regulate bitumen supply chain. Dr. Abdul Hamid says so. Any final words, Joe, before we go?
I think it's been a good and interesting weekend. I hope you enjoy your weekend. Will you be climbing?
I have a packed weekend. And,
will you be climbing?
I planned to, but I have this readathon tomorrow that I have to be at and then be at someone's wedding. So it doesn't look like I can do all of that.
I haven't climbed this year, but I'll resume at some point.
Please, let's not reveal our secret. Anyway, Joseph Akable joining me for the news review. As we get into sports where Manchester United scored 2 goals yesterday, courtesy of a certain Sabitzer, and then seeded both goals through own goals. Can you imagine that? to Sevilla. Now, it's a tall task, tall order for us to scale when we go to Spain. But this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering free prostate screening, free female fertility screening. Locate them in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronuma Boyhia, behind the Angel Educational Complex. Takrade Anaji State Tema Community 22. Techiman Hanswa and Esiama in Zema. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports is up next with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. Do stay.